Curtis was immersed in post-production on his monumental miniseries War and Remembrance, the highly acclaimed sequel to The Winds of War. Although expressing interest, he informed me that Dark Shadows would need to take a backseat to his all-consuming current work. He cryptically indicated that the time would come to revisit his Gothic serial creation. I began my association with Dark Shadows as the director of the Dark Shadows Festival, coordinating the annual gatherings that served as both cast reunion and fan convention. Usually held in New York and Los Angeles, the desire was for these unique events to also promote Dark Shadows on various PBS stations at the time and to generate professional media coverage for the show as a baby boomer classic. In late 1989, I reconnected with Curtis to begin the launch of Dark Shadows on home video. This would ultimately involve pulling together elements for all 1,225 episodes, of which a third had never been rebroadcast, and dealing with all the production, promotion, and marketing aspects. This unprecedented undertaking would be accomplished in connection with MPI Home Video, a family-run enterprise out of Chicago that was a pioneer in consumer video releases. Simultaneously, Curtis, on the search for a new project, was enticed by NBC television chief Brandon Tartikoff to resurrect Dark Shadows in the form of a weekly hour-long primetime drama. With production commencing in March of 1990, I moved to Los Angeles and began work at Dan Curtis Productions as both a marketing manager overseeing Dark Shadows activities as well as serving as an assistant to the writing staff of the revival series. Unfortunately, the 1991 weekly series only lasted 13 episodes, but Dan always remained enthusiastic about giving Dark Shadows another chance. In 2004, he partnered with John Wells Productions to attempt another primetime version. Following creative differences, that enterprise only yielded an unfinished and unaired pilot, for which I was an associate producer. I would continue to be part of Dan Curtis Productions through the dissolution of the company upon Dan's death in March of 2006. Since then, I've been involved as a consultant for the 2012 Dark Shadows feature film directed by Tim Burton, produced the 2019 documentary Master of Dark Shadows, and remained responsible for marketing and promoting Dark Shadows for the Curtis estate. As Dan predicted, his spooky soap opera still possesses a healthy heartbeat. It's now been over half a century since the stormy waves first crashed over the jagged rocks on the cold and windy seashore of Collinsport, Maine. Here's a capsule of highlights. In 1966, Dark Shadows debuts from Dan Curtis Productions as an ABC TV afternoon soap opera on June 27th, hailed as the first daytime drama styled in the Gothic novel tradition. Later that year, the first of 32 paperback novels by Marilyn Ross, based on the series, is issued, starting a Dark Shadows merchandising effort that will include games, gum cards, and even a replica of Josette's music box. In 1967, Jonathan Frid joins the cast in April as reluctant vampire Barnabas Collins and saves the series from cancellation. In 1968, David Selby makes his December debut as Quentin Collins in the form of a ghost and becomes the program's second most popular player. Gold Key issues the first Dark Shadows comic book and will continue to publish them until 1976. In the summer of 1969, Dark Shadows achieves its highest rating ever with the 1897 storyline, attracting a peak of 20 million viewers. Additionally, the original music from Dark Shadows reaches number 18 on the Billboard album chart, and the instrumental Quentin's theme, covered by the Charles Randolph Green Sound, hits number 13 on the singles chart. Jonathan Frid's personal picture album is published by Paperback Library. In 1970, Dark Shadows hits the motion picture screen when House of Dark Shadows is released in September. Also that year, Quentin's theme is nominated for a Grammy Award as Best Instrumental Composition. In 1971, after 1,225 original episodes, Dark Shadows ends its ABC television run on Friday, April the 2nd. The MGM Motion Picture Night of Dark Shadows is released in September, and a Dark Shadows newspaper comic strip begins a one-year run nationwide.